The silence before the storm lasts exactly 43 seconds. Zora counts them, pressed against cleaning supplies that smell of lemon and bleach, her hand gentle but firm over her son's mouth. She'd learned this game in the first month of motherhood, the quiet game, where mama needs you to be so still, sweet baby, just for a minute. But 10-month-olds don't understand security deposits or the difference between inconvenient and fatal. When Micah's cry finally erupts, it's explosive, the full-lunged wail of a tired baby who's done with patience. The sound detonates through corridors designed to muffle screams of a very different nature. Zora feels her bladder weaken. In the 3 weeks she's worked here, she's learned certain truths about this place. The marble floors are Calacatta gold, worth more per square foot than her annual salary. The paintings in the hallway are originals, not prints, and Han Woo-jin, the man who owns all of it, has killed at least 14 people with his own hands. That's just the confirmed count. The footsteps approaching sound like a death march played at half speed. Other staff members vanish. A maintenance worker disappears into a supply room. A guard suddenly finds the courtyard fascinating. Everyone understands the first rule of survival in this house. If the boss is displeased, become invisible. But Zora is trapped with a screaming baby and nowhere to hide. When Han Woo-jin rounds the corner, she experiences the curious sensation of watching her life end in slow motion. He's younger than she expected, perhaps 35, with the kind of face that belongs on cologne advertisements. If cologne ads featured men whose eyes suggested they'd seen the world burn and enjoyed the view. His suit probably costs more than her canceled student visa legal fees. Everything about him speaks of precision, control, power compressed into human form. If you value the hard work behind these stories, hitting that subscribe button would mean so much to me. Also, before we begin, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's continue. I asked a question. His voice is soft, which somehow makes it worse. Men who scream are emotional, manageable. Men who whisper while angry are something else entirely. Who is making that noise in my house? Zora steps out of the closet. There's no point hiding now. At least if she faces him directly, maybe he'll make it quick. I'm sorry, Mr. Han. I'll leave immediately. My childcare canceled and I couldn't afford to miss the shift, and I thought. She stops, because what did she think? That she could hide a baby in a crime boss's mansion? But Woo-jin isn't looking at her. He's staring at Micah with an expression she can't decipher. It's not anger exactly. It's more like confusion, as if her son is a puzzle he's never encountered. Micah, for his part, has stopped crying. He's looking at Woo-jin with huge brown eyes, and then, impossibly, he smiles. That gummy, whole-face smile babies give when they see something that delights them. How old? Woo-jin asks. 10 months. Zora's voice shakes. He should be afraid. Sir, children can sense violence. It's instinctive. Woo-jin takes a step closer, and Zora's arms tighten around Micah automatically. But her son is reaching out now, both chubby arms extended, making the grasping motions that mean hold me, pick me up, I want you. He should be screaming. Instead, when Woo-jin is close enough, Micah's fingers close around the man's index finger. And hold on. Woo-jin freezes, his other hand moving toward his back, toward the gun Zora knows is holstered there, but not drawing it. He seems unable to process what's happening. For a moment, the most feared man in Seoul stands paralyzed by a baby's grip. He doesn't let go of strangers, Zora whispers. He's usually terrified of. But she stops, because how do you tell a crime boss that your child is typically afraid of men, afraid of loud voices, afraid of anyone who isn't his mother, and yet here he is clinging to death personified like they're old friends? Woo-jin's expression shifts through emotions too quick to name. Then he gently extracts his finger, and Zora prepares for the worst. Instead, he says, my office. 5 minutes. Bring him. He walks away, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. A guard who witnessed the whole thing crosses himself. Americans, he mutters in Korean, shaking his head. Absolutely insane. Zora agrees completely, but has no choice except to obey. Woo-jin's office sits at the compound's heart, a space designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Seoul's skyline, but the glass is 3 inches thick, bulletproof, tinted to prevent sniper sightlines. The desk is a brutal slab of black walnut that could double as a sacrificial altar. Everything in the room says, this is where decisions are made, and those decisions often end in blood. Zora enters with Micah balanced on her hip. hyper-aware that she's wearing a cleaning uniform worth maybe $15 while standing on a rug that probably cost $15,000. Woo-jin sits behind his desk, fingers steepled, watching them with that unreadable expression. "Sit," he says, gesturing to a chair that's more comfortable than anything in Zora's apartment. She sits, adjusting mica so he can't reach anything valuable. Her son, however, seems fascinated by everything. The crystal paperweight shaped like a dragon, the jade sculpture on the corner table, the man behind the desk who's studying them like specimens under glass. "Your background," Woo-jin says. "It's not a question. I came to Seoul 18 months ago for a graduate teaching position at Yonsei University, English literature. But the program lost funding, and my work visa wasn't renewed. I'm on a student visa extension now while I try to figure out." She trails off, because does he actually care about her immigration troubles? "I needed work that didn't require documentation. The cleaning agency doesn't ask questions. The child's father? Not in the picture. Never was." Zora lifts her chin, daring him to judge. She's heard every variation of judgment already. "And you brought an infant to my home because? Because my rent is due in 4 days and I'm short $800, and the only babysitter I can afford canceled 3 hours before my shift. I made a choice. Obviously the wrong one." She's not sure where this boldness is coming from. Possibly the resignation that she's already ruined, so she might as well be honest. "You're going to fire me. I understand. I just need to collect my things from the supply closet." Woo-jin leans back, his expression unchanging. "You're correct. I am going to fire you." Her stomach drops. From cleaning. The position doesn't suit someone with a graduate degree in literature. "What languages do you speak?" The question throws her. "English, obviously. Spanish, I minored in it. And I've been learning Korean. I'm not fluent, but I can handle basic conversation and read Hangul." "Korean business culture?" "I've been here long enough to understand some nuances. Hierarchical respect, the importance of saving face, indirect communication styles." She stops. "Why are you asking me this?" Woo-jin stands, moving to the window. From this angle, backlit by Seoul's glittering sprawl, he looks like something out of a gangster film. Beautiful, dangerous, untouchable. "I conduct business with international partners. Americans, Europeans, occasionally South Americans. Many of them find Korean business practices opaque. They make mistakes, give offense without realizing it, miss opportunities because they don't understand what's actually being communicated." He turns back to face her. "I need someone who can bridge that gap. Someone who understands both worlds and can translate. Not just language, but context, meaning, cultural nuance. Someone intelligent enough to read a room and discreet enough to forget what they've seen." The position pays $12,000 monthly, includes an apartment in Gangnam with childcare services, and comes with a private security detail. Zora's brain short-circuits. "I'm sorry, what? You heard me clearly. You want to hire me? As what, a cultural consultant? A translator? Both. Also as someone whose presence reminds me that not everyone in this world is calculating their advantage." Woo-jin's gaze flicks to Micah, who has fallen asleep against Zora's shoulder, one tiny fist curled in her shirt. "Your son saw me and reached out. No hesitation, no fear. Do you know how rare that is? In my world, even dogs cross the street when I approach." There's something in his voice, not quite pain, not quite longing, but something close to both. It occurs to Zora that this man, who commands an empire built on fear, has just admitted to being lonely in the most oblique way possible. "I need to think about it," she says, which is a lie. She needs this job desperately. But accepting means entering a world where violence isn't theoretical, where the man sitting across from her might order someone's death before lunch and discuss art investments after dinner. Can she do that? Should she? "You have 24 hours to decide," Woo-jin says. He pulls a business card from his desk drawer and slides it across to her. "My private number. Call with your answer." He pauses, then adds, "For what it's worth, Miss Mitchell, I'm not asking you to compromise your principles. I'm asking you to help me navigate a world that's far more complex than good versus evil. Sometimes the monster is the only thing standing between chaos and complete destruction. That's the thing that haunts Zora as she leaves. He called himself a monster without hesitation, as if it were simply a fact rather than a judgment. And perhaps in his world, it is. The truth reveals itself slowly, like a photograph developing in chemicals. Zora accepts the position. She'd have been insane not to, and insanity requires the luxury of options she doesn't possess. The apartment Woo-jin provides is 3 times the size of her previous studio, with windows overlooking the Han River and a nursery that makes her throat tight with gratitude. There's a crib, a changing table, soft toys carefully selected by someone who understood what a baby needs. Her first week is training, learning the organizational structure, the key players, the subtle signals that mean a meeting is going well or about to turn violent. She sits in on negotiations, taking notes, watching Woo-jin operate. He's brilliant at reading people, understanding exactly which pressure points to apply, when to offer incentives versus threats. But he's too direct with Western partners, too subtle with his own people. She starts offering suggestions quietly, adjusting his phrasing before emails are sent, providing cultural context he doesn't have. The first time her advice prevents a deal from collapsing, Woo-jin looks at her with something approaching respect. "You see patterns I miss," he says. "You see different patterns," she corrects. "You understand power. I understand people. Sometimes those are the same thing, but not always." He considers this, then nods slowly. "Teach me." So she does. In the margins of business meetings and late-night strategy sessions, Zora finds herself explaining the subtle art of human connection to a man who spent 2 decades learning only dominance and control. She tells him about vulnerability as strength, about the power of admitting ignorance, about how sometimes the most effective negotiation tactic is simply listening. And slowly, incrementally, something shifts in Woo-jin. He starts asking questions instead of making declarations. He pauses before responding, considering not just strategy but impact. His subordinates notice. They're less afraid, more loyal, which paradoxically makes them more effective. But it's in the evenings that Zora sees the real transformation. Woo-jin starts appearing at her apartment around Micah's bedtime, always with some excuse, documents to review, schedules to discuss. But the documents can wait. First, he needs to hold Micah, to feel those small hands grip his finger, to hear the baby laugh at his exaggerated facial expressions. "Tell me about your brother," Zora says one night after Micah is asleep. Woo-jin's expression closes immediately. "What makes you think I have a brother?" "Had." Past tense. "I've noticed you carry a photo in your wallet. Young boy, maybe 15 or 16, with your eyes. You touch it sometimes during difficult meetings, like a talisman." For a long moment, she thinks he won't answer. Then, Jae-sung. "He died when I was 23, he was 16. Gang initiation for a rival group. They told him to rob a convenience store, prove himself. The owner had a gun. My brother had a knife and terror, and the stupid fucking bravery of boys who think they're immortal." His hands clench. "I found him bleeding out on the pavement. He died calling for our mother, who'd been dead for 3 years. After that, I made a choice. Better to be the monster they fear than the victim they destroy. I climbed the ranks, eliminated anyone who stood in my way, built an empire on the principle that strength is the only currency that matters. And now," Zora asks gently, "now your son reaches for me like I'm someone worth reaching for. And I don't know what to do with that." He looks at her, and his eyes hold something she's never seen there before: uncertainty, vulnerability, the raw ache of hope. "What if I'm not capable of being what he thinks I am?" "What if you are?" she counters. "What if the monster was always just a choice, and you can choose differently?" The question hangs in the air between them, heavy with possibility. The weeks blur into months. Zora becomes indispensable, not just as a translator but as Woo-jin's conscience, the voice that asks should we, instead of just can we. She witnesses things that should horrify her. Negotiations that are thinly veiled threats, punishments delivered to those who betrayed trust, the cold calculus of violence necessary to maintain order in a world without laws. But she also sees the other side. Woo-jin protecting the families of his men, ensuring that subordinates' children get education funds, mediating disputes before they escalate into bloodshed. The truth that settles in her bones is uncomfortable. Woo-jin isn't good, but he's not purely evil either. He's a man navigating impossible choices in a world where every decision has body count implications. And somehow, impossibly, he's becoming someone better. Not through redemption arcs or dramatic transformations, but through small daily choices influenced by a child's unconditional trust. Micah takes his first steps toward Woo-jin. His first word is Jin, a shortened version of Woo-jin's name that makes the crime boss's eyes suspiciously bright. When Micah falls and scrapes his knee, he cries for Woo-jin as often as for his mother. Zora watches all this and feels her carefully constructed walls crumbling. She's falling for him. Not the monster, not the myth, but the man who reads bedtime stories in accented English, who researches child development to understand Micah better, who asks her opinion not because he has to but because he genuinely values her perspective. The night he kisses her, she tastes desperation and hope in equal measure. "I don't deserve this," he whispers against her mouth. "Probably not," she agrees. "But neither of us gets to decide what we deserve. We just get to decide what we do with what we're given." What they're given, it turns out, is a target. The attack comes on a Tuesday, which Zora will later think is absurd. Violence should at least have the courtesy to arrive on dramatic days, not in the middle of an ordinary week. She's in Woo-jin's office reviewing contracts while Micah plays in the corner with blocks, building towers specifically designed to be knocked down. Kim Sang-woo makes his move at 2:47 p.m., the same time Micah's cry first echoed through these halls 5 months ago. The symbolism probably isn't accidental. The first explosion blows out the eastern window. Zora's brain registers broken glass, smoke, the sharp crack of gunfire before her body catches up. Then Woo-jin is there, moving with inhuman speed, throwing himself over her and Micah as the world dissolves into chaos. His body is a shield, his weight pressing them into the floor as bullets punch through walls and furniture splinters. Zora can feel his heart hammering against her back, can hear him barking orders in Korean too rapid for her to follow. Micah is screaming, not hurt, just terrified, and that sound seems to fuel Woo-jin with desperate strength. "The panic room," he shouts to someone. "Get them to the—" Another explosion cuts him off. The floor shudders. Smoke fills the office, acrid and choking. Zora grabs Micah, curling around him, trying to be as small as possible. Through the chaos, she sees figures moving. Woo-jin's guards engaging the attackers, the firefight brutal, and close quarters. Woo-jin pulls her up, half carrying, half dragging her toward a hidden door in the wall she's never noticed. They're almost there when a figure emerges from the smoke. Kim Sang-woo himself, gun raised, face twisted with rage and triumph. "The monster who found a heart," Kim sneers in Korean. "They said it was impossible. I almost didn't believe it." Woo-jin steps in front of Zora and Micah, deliberately positioning himself between the gun and his family. His family. When did that happen? When did they become his to protect? "You want to kill me, Kim? Go ahead. But them, they're civilians. They have nothing to do with this." "That's where you're wrong," Kim says and fires. The bullet takes Woo-jin in the shoulder, spinning him back. He staggers but doesn't fall, launching himself at Kim instead. The two men collide in a tangle of violence, and Zora has the presence of mind to run, not away, but to the panic room Woo-jin indicated. She slams the door behind them just as more guards arrive, the fight intensifying. The panic room is soundproofed, dark, terrifying in its implications. Micah's cries echo off reinforced walls. Zora holds him, rocking, praying in languages she didn't know she remembered. The silence outside could mean anything: victory, defeat, death. When the door finally opens, she nearly attacks whoever is on the other side. But it's Woo-jin, blood-soaked, swaying, but alive. His eyes find them immediately, scanning for injuries with desperate intensity. "You're hurt," Zora says stupidly, because he's obviously hurt, blood soaking through his shirt from his shoulder wound. "Doesn't matter." He collapses against the wall, sliding down to sit. Is he? "We're fine. We're okay. But you need a hospital. Doctor's coming. Kim is dead. Most of his men are dead or captured." Woo-jin's eyes close. "This is my fault. I made you targets. I should have known that showing weakness, caring about something, would make you both vulnerable." Zora moves closer, Micah still in her arms. Her son has stopped crying, reaching toward Woo-jin with concern wrinkling his small forehead. "No," she says firmly. "You don't get to call caring a weakness. You don't get to call love a mistake. Love." Woo-jin's eyes open, focusing on her with laser intensity. She hadn't meant to say it, but now that it's out, she owns it. "Yes, love. That's what this is. You think I don't see it? The way you panic if Micah so much as sneezes? The way you've learned what I drink my coffee like, how I prefer my space in the morning, which books I read when I'm stressed. You think I don't notice that you've been quietly eliminating the more violent aspects of your business, trying to find legitimate paths forward. I'm a monster, Zora. I've killed. I know what you've done. I also know what you're trying to become." She reaches out, touching his uninjured shoulder. "Redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a different future. Micah sees that future when he looks at you. I see it too. Woo-jin's control finally breaks. His hand comes up to cup her face, thumb brushing away tears she didn't realize were falling. I don't know how to be this. How to be human. Lucky for you, she says. We have time to figure it out. Micah, tired of being left out of the moment, reaches for Woo-jin with both hands. And despite the blood, despite the pain, despite everything, Woo-jin takes him, careful of his wounded shoulder, but taking him nonetheless. Her son curls into the crook of his arm like he belongs there, like this killer's embrace is the safest place in the world. Maybe it is. 6 months after the attack, the compound has changed in ways both subtle and profound. There's still security, still the underlying current of danger that comes with Woo-jin's world, but there's something else now too, laughter in the hallways, light in spaces that used to feel like tombs. Woo-jin has been systematically legitimizing his operations, transitioning from overtly criminal enterprises to businesses that operate in moral gray zones rather than pitch darkness. It's not redemption, exactly. He still makes hard choices. He still protects his territory with force when necessary. But he does it differently now, with strategy that minimizes casualties, with offers of exits for those willing to take them, with an understanding that violence is a tool of last resort rather than first instinct. Zora stands in the garden, another recent addition, this one specifically designed for a toddler to explore safely. Micah toddles between flower beds, narrating his adventures in the mixed English-Korean that's become his native language. He's 17 months old now, fearless and funny, utterly convinced that the world exists to delight him. He'll need proper schooling soon, Woo-jin says, appearing beside her with the silent grace that used to terrify her and now just feels familiar. His shoulder has healed, leaving a scar he refuses to hide. I've been researching international schools. And what about you? Still planning to be Seoul's most terrifying businessman when he's old enough to understand what you do. I'm planning to be whatever I need to be to deserve being his father. Woo-jin pauses. If that's something you'd want. Officially. Zora turns to look at him fully. Is this a proposal? It's a question. I'm not good with sentiment, Zora. But I know that when I imagine my future, you and Micah are in it. Not as employees, not as obligations, but as, he struggles for the word. Family, she supplies. Yes, family. He takes her hand, his grip strong but careful. I can't promise I'll ever be normal. My world will always carry risks. But I can promise that I will spend every day trying to be worthy of what you both have given me. The chance to be something other than what I was built to be. You know the irony? Zora says, watching Micah discover a butterfly. I came to Seoul to teach literature. To study stories about transformation and redemption and the human capacity for change. I never thought I'd end up living inside one of those stories. And the ending? How does the literature professor think this should end? She considers. In classic literature, the villain either dies or gets punished. Redemption arcs end with sacrifice, with the reformed character proving their change through noble death or permanent exile from everything they love. But life, Zora has learned, is more complicated than literature. Change isn't a single moment of dramatic transformation. It's 1,000 small choices, repeated daily, building slowly into something new. I think, she says slowly, the ending is that there is no ending. Just continuation. You keep choosing to be better. Micah keeps teaching us both how to trust. And I keep learning that people are far more complex than stories pretend they are. Woo-jin pulls her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. That's a very unsatisfying narrative arc. Good thing this isn't a story then. It's just life. Micah runs toward them, arms outstretched, and Woo-jin scoops him up with practiced ease. Their son grabs both their faces, pushing them together like he's directing a play, then laughs with delight when they kiss. Again, Micah demands in Korean. Tyrant, Woo-jin says fondly but complies. Later that evening, after Micah is asleep, Zora and Woo-jin sit on the balcony overlooking the city. Seoul glitters below them, millions of lives playing out in the dark, each person navigating their own impossible choices, their own paths between who they were and who they're trying to become. Do you ever regret it? Woo-jin asks quietly. Staying. Choosing this. Zora thinks about it honestly. She thinks about the fear of that first day, the moral compromises she's made, the violence she's witnessed. She thinks about the luxury that came from blood money, the security that's built on threat of force. She thinks about all the ways this relationship defies every principle she thought she held sacred. Then she thinks about Woo-jin reading bedtime stories, his accent mangling English pronunciations in ways that make her smile. She thinks about how he's continue. 9:01 a.m. Teaching Micah Korean folk tales, passing on heritage and culture despite his complicated relationship with both. She thinks about the man he's becoming. Not perfect, not redeemed in any absolute sense, but genuinely trying to build something better than what he inherited. I don't regret choosing you, she finally says. I regret that the world is built in ways that make men like you necessary. I regret that violence and poverty trap people into impossible situations. But you specifically? No regrets. He nods slowly, processing this. I never thought I'd be grateful for a canceled babysitter and bad timing. The universe works in mysterious ways. The universe, Woo-jin says dryly, nearly got you killed. But it didn't. And now we're here. Now we're here, he agrees. They sit in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe. Somewhere out there, people are making their own impossible choices. Single mothers deciding whether to take risks for survival. Men in dark rooms calculating violence versus peace. Children reaching out to strangers with unconditional trust that might save everyone involved. The world is messy and complex, and refuses to fit into neat categories of good and evil. Zora has made peace with that. She's made peace with loving a man whose hands have done terrible things, because those same hands are gentle with her son, because those hands are building rather than destroying now, because redemption isn't about the past, it's about what you choose going forward. Micah cries out in his sleep, a small sound of distress. Both Zora and Woo-jin move immediately, reaching their son's room at the same time. They stand over his crib, watching as he settles back into peaceful dreams, his small chest rising and falling with perfect trust that he's safe, that he's loved, that the world, despite all evidence to the contrary, is fundamentally good. He still sees it, Woo-jin whispers. When he looks at me, he still sees someone worth trusting. Then don't let him down, Zora says simply. I won't. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure his faith isn't misplaced. And standing there in the dark, watching over the child who brought them together, Zora believes him. Not because Woo-jin has transformed into something perfect, but because she's learned that transformation isn't a destination, it's a direction. And as long as you keep moving towards something better, as long as you let love reshape you daily, there's hope. Even monsters can learn tenderness. Even the hardest hearts can crack open. Even in the darkest places, a child's trust can create light. That's not a lesson from literature. That's a truth Zora has learned from living. Messily, imperfectly, but honestly, inside the story of her life.